In this video, I would like to turn my attention to the issue of policing. This was brought upon by a recent event, or shall I say tragedy, that took place in New York, specifically a Brooklyn subway where a gunman opened fire and he ended up wounding about 10 people or so. Thankfully, there were no casualties reported. Nevertheless, this is a tragic event that will surely affect physically and mostly mentally the people that were involved, as well as those that may have watched from afar. Now, of course, after this took place, we got renewed calls from elected officials and leading politicians to bolster our police department and strengthen them and really give them what they need so that they may take effect and actually stop this sort of crime from happening. Do you notice a reoccurring trend here? And that's what I want to take issue with in this video. This event, and many events in the past have done the same thing, this is just the latest, don't get it misconstrued, exposes a very harsh reality of policing in this country of America. So every time something like this happens, Democrat, Republican, doesn't matter which politician, what cloth they're cut from in terms of political parties, they all come out and they issue the same kind of rhetoric. We need to give more millions and billions of dollars to the police departments. They need, more resources, more funding so that these things can stop happening. That's been going on for years now. They haven't stopped happening. It's always this, I call it the if only. If only they had more billions of dollars, if only they had more machine guns, if only they had a tank. That may not be hyperbole, by the way. We may get to that point if we're not already there. But what I want to do is I want to read for you a couple of tweets that I thought were extremely interesting that kind of exposes this for what it is. This is from Samuel. $10.4 billion NYPD budget, and they couldn't get their radios to work in a crisis. Their surveillance cameras malfunctioned, and no officers prevented anything or apprehended anyone. But politicians plan to just throw more money at it, no questions asked. This is from Public Citizen. The NYPD's $10 billion budget would make it the 24th largest military spender on the planet. This is from another individual. Please understand that over 1,000 cops were added to the subway system in the past couple months, meaning there are over 3,500 subway cops in NYC, and this tragedy still happened. We desperately need to think beyond police when it comes to public safety. This is from the Gravel Institute. If the NYPD were an army, it would be one of the largest in the world. It has offices in 11 foreign cities. It has 6 submarine drones. If it can't stop an attack in its own city subway system, it's not because of a lack of funding. And in reading you these tweets, in case it's difficult to discern so far, or if I haven't outright said it, my position isn't to abolish the police or completely get rid of them. No, not in any sense. I am simply trying to bring awareness to the fact that there isn't even a conversation being had about an alternative to how to deal with issues such as the one that just occurred, and many others in many instances, instead of just wastefully throwing more money away at an institution that can't prevent these things from happening. Look, man, if there were a direct correlation between giving police billions of dollars in weapons and all the rest of it, and we can live in a peaceful society where not a bit of crime ever occurred, I might actually be for that. But guess what? That's not our reality. Not in any sense. There's no statistics that suggest that funding the police more than we already do, which is a lot, decreases crime. Not at all. In fact, if you look really deep, there may be evidence that supports the opposite. But I assume that's a conversation that many people aren't ready for. Look, man, we go about this so oddly. It's at a point where I really can't comprehend. And just give you an example, Mr. Eric Adams, the mayor of New York, he recently, basically, more or less, declared war on the homeless population in New York, basically issuing the police these armed guards to get these people off the streets and put them where? They don't have a home. Instead of giving money to social services and other things to help these people in their time of need, he's just going to throw more money at the police to be tough on these people that have close to nothing, if anything at all, to get them off the streets and put them where? In a jail cell? I have no idea. I'll leave that up to you. But what this does to me is a bigger problem arises, even more so than policing itself. You see, we have in this country an economic system called capitalism. And this capitalism has a tendency to promote vast inequality, especially with its periodic economic downturns that throw millions of people out of work, that cast them to or subjugates them to this degradation and neglect. And it makes societies more unequal. And if you weren't aware, America is one of the most unequal societies or places on the earth, with a small minority of people at the very top that hold so much wealth, and the vast majority are forced to scramble over the crumbs that they leave behind us or behind for us. And what this does is it creates a situation where people feel neglected. There's degradation, there's frustration, there's anger. And when people lash out to display their anger, to protest, to take to the streets, to do whatever they feel they need to do, whatever civil disobedience, the capitalists, the people that are in power, deploy the police, the people that are supposed to protect and serve us, to protect and serve the capitalists and their profits. And that's actually the true job of the police. They're not necessarily there to maintain the law and protect the streets. No, they're used essentially as a force to preserve capitalism. And whenever there's an uprising, whenever there's an unrest among unions or whatever the case, and you don't just see it here in America, you see it over in other societies. You know, when the Yellow Vest protests were going on in France, they deployed the police to beat them down, crack their skulls, beat them up, send them home. They do the same thing here. I mean, we saw it in the year 2020 was the year of Black Lives Matter. There were huge protests everywhere across the country. There was police violence, the likes of which I've never seen in my lifetime. I mean, it was astounding, the response that they had to those protests. And just imagine trying to protest for economic equality. Forget racial equality and social justice. I mean, that's an entirely different animal. Imagine protesting for healthcare for all, and then they send these armed militias to beat you up. And by the way, the Gravel Institute did a great video, and I actually made a video on it myself. I'll put it up here somewhere, about police gangs being all over LA County. You know, if that can happen in LA County, it can happen anywhere across the nation. And we're funding these people. That's who we're giving our funding to, you know. And it speaks to an even larger issue. And I'll end the video on this. There's a word here in this country that we love to champion. You may have heard of it. It's called democracy. Well, in many instances, very important instances, probably the most important, the workplace, we don't have democracy. And there are many great people that are advocating for democracy in the workplace, among many other areas. But another area where we don't have democracy that isn't talked about enough is policing. Just think about it for a second. When it comes to policing, how is it done? We are told, communities, we're told by the police, and sometimes by government officials, politicians, etc., where the money's going to go, what it's going to go towards, what they're going to do, how they're going to treat you, how much time you're going to get for this, what this is going to be punishable, and you don't get a say. You have no say at all. Isn't that odd? How the people that are being policed have no say in how they're treated. You know, they're not asked any questions. Should this police budget be as high as it is? Maybe should some of this money go to social services so we can get some of these people off the street? Should this be punishable? Should this be punishable by this much? Is this too harsh? Is this not harsh enough? The people aren't included on any of these conversations. It's not democracy. And so as this event occurred, I just thought to make this video because there's a lot of interesting topics and conversations that come out of it. And it seems like our politicians are stuck in their same old ways and are going to keep, look, you can't teach an old dog new tricks, essentially. Isn't that the old saying? You can't teach an old dog new tricks. Every time they encounter this problem, They tried out the same old non-solutions that don't work. Let's give more money, let's give more drones, let's give more whatever to these people that are kind of insane, by the way, and have them not solve the problem. And in a sense, they're given a job that's entirely way too difficult. We're asking this of people for them to solve these problems that they can't solve and that can't be solved through brute force alone. And this was a tragedy that happened in Brooklyn. And, you really hope that these things can happen less often. But I know one thing for certain. Giving millions and billions of dollars to these police departments and giving them more gun and weaponry and going with this line of attack that we need to fund them to hell and back certainly isn't going to do it.